Hi everybody, it's Kris Hicks, Head of Press and Communications at UKIP. I'm joined once again with Carl Benjamin, UKIP member. We're talking about the issues of the day. I think the next thing we need to talk about is a chap called James Mooney. He's a film lecturer who was quoting a line from the film Trainspotting. It's a line that's rather disparaging of English people, let's just say. But he has now been reported to the police for effectively quoting a line from a movie in a film and television lecture, and apparently it constitutes a hate crime. What's going on this campus?
That is the accusation. I mean, the quote itself, if I can read it, I am quoting, spent this morning telling a group of visiting American students that we don't really hate the English, but that they are wankers. Welcome to Scotland. Now, I personally find that quite funny. It's not untrue. But this is it's obvious banter. You know, and it's just an obvious.
But it's not even just banter. I mean, he's referring to a specific line from for a movie where Renton, who's the protagonist, one of the main protagonists, refers to Scotland being colonised by the English, but him being in despair because the English are wankers, let's say, as it says in the film. So, I mean, this man is effectively just doing his job. He's quoting a film. He's a film and television lecturer, and then somebody on that campus has decided to complain this for being a hate crime against English. Surely
the question will be, yes, you may well have been quoting from Trainspotting, but why did you have to use that particular quote in this particular context? The implication will be, you know, assumed, and this person obviously has to get offended on behalf of the English, because now the English are victims of hate crime by this person. This person has shown that he's, and they literally call it xenophobic comments. I mean, which is just laughable, in my opinion. And I mean, I say this as someone who considers themselves to be English. I don't want to see English people acting like victims, because I think all of this kind of victimology, grievance mongering is really unhealthy. And this echoes back to something that Ron Liddell did back in March in 2018, or sorry, April 2018, where he'd written a column in which he made a joke. And since you're a Welshman, I'll read it out, and you can tell me how offended you are by this. Sure. Okay. So he said, the Welsh, or some of them, are moaning that a motorway bridge linking their rain-sodden valleys with the First World is to be renamed.
Well, you know, there's the classic Jim Davidson joke. He asked, well, what's the best thing to come out of Wales? And of course, it's the M4, isn't it? But look, I mean...
How offended were you by that?
I absolutely zero offence towards that. I mean, I find Rod Liddell rather funny, and I think anyone with a general sense of who they are would not take any particular offence whatsoever. I mean, there are some, you know, relative facts behind what he says, although he's extreme calling Wales a third world country. I mean, the reality, though, is that Wales is the poorest part of the United Kingdom, and I think we have to seriously kind of look at that and ask, well, why? Why is Wales failing economically?
Can I take a guess? They're governed by Labour, aren't they?
Well, they are, yes, quite. Wales has been dominated by the Labour Party rule, and certainly since devolution in 1999. And this is, of course, an interesting minor sieg into the fact that we have just announced that we're changing and reverting our policy back to opposition to the Welsh Assembly. We are now calling for a referendum on devolution in Wales for 2024, which would actually be the 25th anniversary of the Welsh Assembly being established. But yes, I mean, in terms of Wales, it's become effectively a one-party state ruled by the Labour Party, who are high tax, who really don't want any kind of investment in the country. And let's face it, it's in the interests of the old Labour Party to keep people poor.
Well,
keep them, you know, enthralled to the government, because that is the nature of their policies and their power.
And it certainly is the nature of their sort of philosophical view of the world as well. They believe that the state can be the solution to people's poverty. And I'm sorry, the state doesn't make money.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. It just, and like you say, high taxes, and it discourages investment. It discourages consumer spending. It's just a really bad idea if you want wealth to be spread around.
But going back to the initial topic of this, I mean, this is one of those dangerous examples in the news which could potentially set a precedent.
Yes.
Because what we're seeing in the comment from this university lecturer is a quote from a production. Now, if he finds himself potentially with criminal charges, does that mean that anyone who quotes anything, a disparaging comment from a play, from a film, from a video game, or indeed even just broadcasts that to a public, are they then potentially liable and open to effectively some kind of criminal proceeding, or at the very least the police calling them up and saying, you know, check your thinking, you can't be saying that
well, which is something the police have done.
Yep.
So it's not that's something they've done with people who have made comments about transgenderism online, and the police have generally turned up to say, well, we just want to check the way you're thinking about this. And it's like, I'm sorry, this is way beyond the remit of the police. But yeah, I mean, the main problem I have with this is that I really do think that banter is one of the core parts of the sort of social fabric of the United Kingdom. I think the sort of, and it is ethnic banter between the English, Irish, Scots and Welsh that I think normalises the differences between them, and I think actually is in some way reassuring. You know, I mean, one of my favourite parts of any kind of World Cup are the Scottish T-shirt sellers that have anyone but England shirts. I find that hilarious.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It's just really funny. But like, you know, we all know it's not about hatred. It's about jokes, and it's about being able to speak truth to power, because there is always some truth contained within the joke. Like you say, Rod Liddell's saying, you know, connecting the third world to Britain. Well, I mean, it is the poorest area of Britain, you know, and, you know, them complaining, we don't actually hate the English, they're just wankers. Well, I mean, you know, historically, you could make that case if you were Scottish. You know, you need to be able to speak these kind of truths in a way that isn't offensive, in my opinion, but you still allow people to express what they feel. And honestly, I really do think the banter is just, it's always so back and forth, and it's always so quick, you know, and it's become such an integral part of the cultural life of the country that I really think that it's unbelievably dangerous to start walling off certain ethnic groups in the UK, that are the indigenous ethnic groups in the UK. Because we've lived on this island for over 1,000 years together. You know, we've been sat cheek to jowl for this amount of time. We've had constant warfare, and we've finally come to a place where all we do now is make snarky remarks to one another. Right. And that's fabulous.
Yes.
You know, and we've had a nation that's been solidly together for 300 years because of it. Yeah. And I really do think that if we start like sectioning off, oh, you can't say offensive things about the English if you're Scottish or Welsh, and vice versa, and all this, that is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I think there's something almost uniquely British about this type of banter as well. I mean, I've learned much to my dismay, and that, you know, certain nations do not take too kindly to certain kinds of banter that we take as very normal. I mean, I've found actually that Americans, and I know we've got quite a few American viewers, tend to take exception to certain comments which are actually just meant in jest, or actually friendly jibes, let's say. But, you know, it is something which uniquely bonds British people together, this kind of love-hate relationship, but it is actually grounded in a sense of unity and an understanding, effectively, that what we say isn't really what we actually mean.
It's also validating, you know, to say that I can insult you for being a Welshman and you can insult me for being an Englishman. It's completely validating, because it cements us in our places. You know, it's not, I'm going to try and get rid of you. It's, I need you here so I can mock you, and vice versa. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I really do think it is a kind of cement that is like, that keeps people together. It's so, and just outlawing this kind of stuff because of, and again, radical extremist left-wing positions of political correctness, and you can't dare offend anyone or anything like that. It's going to unwind this kind of social fabric of the country, and it'll start drifting apart. I think it's a terrible idea.